After about the 5th time of getting to a certain goal weight and not being able to get past it, I actually started investigating if there was some kind of magic thing that kept me from going down further. I have currently lost 130 pounds in this go round, but I always felt like my body fought me every single step of the way. I realized that feeling, it just wasn't in my head. It is backed by science. And this is a theory called the set point weight theory. Basically, your body has kind of a weight thermostat, and it is a range where your body feels safe, and it will do everything it can to stay in that range, even if you were trying to change it. When you lose weight, especially quickly or through extreme dieting, your body starts fighting back, and it'll slow down your metabolism, it'll increase hunger hormones like ghrelin, it decreases fullness hormones like leptin, basically trying to save you because it still thinks weight loss means famine or danger. Some people can lose 20 pounds and keep it off, while others lose 100 and still feel stuck or constantly on the edge of regaining, like me.
The set point theory. That sounds tough. What do you mean that your body is working against you? But before I get into that, I am not new to this theory. In fact, I started learning about it many years ago when I started learning about health at every size. That is the first time that I came across the set point theory. But after my journey on HAES almost ruined my health completely and ended up changing my lifestyle and doing a complete video on that, I changed my mind about that. And since then, I have encountered several studies, more recent studies than those that are used in HAES, that challenge this theory. But not only that, there have been many creators who have been part of HAES or even fat acceptance who have left these movements and shared that ever since they left those movements, somehow the set point theory no longer applies to them. But as you can see, that has not stopped the spread of this message. And the truth is that thinking that we have a set point theory leaves so many women feeling helpless. They are convinced that they are stuck in a body that, one, they did not choose, and two, which they cannot influence to change. So now that I have your attention, what exactly is the set point theory? And why are so many women convinced that they have no say when it comes to their weight? Today we are going to look into what science really says about this permanent weight. Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Daisy, aka D. And if you're ready to start reclaiming your power from the weight loss myths that make you feel stuck, you have come to the right place. And truth be told, today's myth is a major motivation killer. And that is the idea that you have a set point weight, which you cannot change. I see this fear constantly on TikTok, especially in the health at every size and fat acceptance circles. And in these cases, people feel, actually women, because these circles are often full of women feel that their weight is a fixed and immovable trait. Just like something like the color of your hair. Actually, we can change that, but they argue the weight cannot change. It's immovable. It's unchangeable. And so they think that if they try to lose weight, their bodies will somehow rubber band them back to where they were. But here's the reality. When we believe that we have no power over the way our bodies look, then we take this responsibility away from ourselves. And that leaves us feeling powerless, helpless. And worse, it discourages us from even trying, because why try if you have no way of changing your situation? Let's talk about why your physiology is actually adaptable, why nature is not as rigid as you have been told, and how you can actually nudge your body to lose weight without getting that rebound, without falling into that yo-yo cycle that many women find themselves in. But before we do that, let me share another video I came across on the set point theory. There are so many. I was so motivated to try and include as many of them as I could, but I had to choose a few because time is of the essence.
Nobody talks about how hard it is to lose weight when you're already pretty healthy.
I do, as a dietitian, a lot. And what's likely happening is you're pushing up against your set point weight. Everybody has a set point weight. It's different for everybody. And this is kind of like an automatic thermostat that is not going to move no matter how hard you try. Your set point weight is kind of like where you stay when you're taking care of yourself pretty well. You're eating enough food. That food's pretty balanced. You're resting enough. You're managing stress to the best of your ability. You're moving joyfully. Once you're kind of there, your body's going to do everything in its power to stay. And so instead of going to extreme lengths to shrink yourself, I wonder what it would be like to look at the system that's imposing the stress on you and ask, what am I hoping for by being thinner, by being smaller, taking up less space? Do I think I'm going to be happier? Do I think I'm going to find my partner? What am I hoping to achieve here? And spend time doing that instead of...
It's always so interesting when you come across dietitians in the health at every size movement or the fat acceptance movement because of the terms that they use. You're trying to shrink yourself. You're trying to take up less space. You're trying to be thinner. Why can't they just say you're trying to lose weight? And for some people, it's actually necessary. But of course, she'll not even touch on why some people might need to lose weight, because she says that you'll be at this set point weight as long as you're taking care of yourself, you're moving your body, you're managing your stress, you're sleeping well. She does not mention thermodynamics in any shape or form. She just assumes that if you're doing all those things, that your body will settle at a certain point. And true, our bodies are a result of our habits. That is true. But she does not get into the specifics of the habits that will keep someone at a certain weight. Because what exactly does you're eating enough, you're fueling your body, what does that exactly mean? But instead of getting into that, let's talk about the set point trap. As you have seen from that creator and also the first creator, the set point theory argues that our bodies have natural weight ranges that they return to no matter what we do. So for example, one person's weight range might be like 60 to 70 kilograms. And the idea here is regardless of what we eat, how much we exercise, how much we sleep, how much we manage our stress levels, regardless of anything that we do, we will always come back to this weight range time and again. And many women feel this frustration quite personally because they have been through this yo-yo cycle where they lose weight and then they regain it, they lose it and then they regain it, and they start internalizing this idea that yes, this is true, they cannot do anything to change their weight because every time that they lose weight they regain it. And so when they hear that their weight is somehow out of their control, they start accepting this idea. I mean, it's easier to assume that your body is not within your control. It's easier to assume that there are these external or even internal influences that you cannot do anything about, and that's why you are not able to lose weight. That is much easier than taking on the responsibility of saying that there are some things that I have gone back to doing ever since I lost weight. These are things that I was doing when I was bigger, and now that I'm back to doing those things, the weight has come back up. Or the things that I did to lose weight were so unsustainable that I cannot continue doing them, and as a result, I am now gaining weight because I'm not able to keep up with what I was doing back then. Like if you went on a cabbage soup diet and you stopped eating cabbage soup, you will gain the weight back. But that does not mean you're back to your weight because it's your natural set point weight. It's because you're back to eating real food, and the reason you lost weight was because you were eating cabbage soup. But movements like Health at Every Size or even fat acceptance don't take these into account. Instead, they tell you something like 95% of diets fail.
When people diet, a few things happen, right? One is they lose a little bit of weight in the short term, they stop losing weight, and then they start gaining weight back after 3 or 5 years. Pretty much all of the available data we have shows us that upwards of 90% gain back even more than when they started.
And they're basing this on a study that was done in like the 20th century and which has been proven wrong over time by more recent studies. And based on these studies that they focus on, studies that were written even before the Health at Every Size book was written, they start telling you that your body will naturally fight you if you try to change it. But is that biology, really? Or is it a reflection of the way that we try to change, the methods that we use to lose weight, that for some people are unsustainable? There are so many methods that people try to lose weight using that are not sustainable in the long run. So it makes sense that they will regain their weight, but then they'll say they're back to their set point because that's what their bodies want. And to show you just how much movements push this message, including by dietitians, let me show you another video. And this is by a dietitian who has been termed as problematic when it comes to the anti-fat acceptance and anti-HAES movements. Her name is Bonnie. Let's see what she has to say about Bethany Frankel. Frankel? I watched Real Housewives of New York and I'm still not sure how to pronounce her name. Bethany.
The only time that I gain weight is when I eat well, exercise, drink water, take saunas, and eliminate alcohol. Somebody explain this.
Hi Bethany, I'm Bonnie. I'm a registered dietitian and a certified intuitive eating counselor, and I believe that our bodies find a weight that they feel best at when we are taking care of them and doing a lot of the things that it sounds like you've been doing. Eating well, exercising. For some people that's reducing alcohol or eliminating it like you did. And I believe when we do all of these things, it allows our bodies to settle at that weight that they function at best. And this weight is the weight that we can maintain without fighting our bodies. Now when I say have your weight settle, oftentimes people will think that that always means weight loss, but that's not the case. Sometimes we actually gain weight as a result of doing all of these things to take care of ourselves. And it's not a bad thing.
Again, our weights are supposed to settle at a certain range when we do these very ambiguous things. You eat right, you exercise, you take care of yourself. But what exactly does taking care of yourself mean? It's such a very ambiguous statement. And also, have you noticed something about these set point dietitians? Have you noticed something about the last two creators that I have covered? Do you notice something about them? Do they really look like people who have struggled with weight gain? Do they? I mean, do they really look like they have excess weight on them that could be causing issues? I mean, I know that you cannot tell if someone is healthy by looking at them, but you can tell whether they have excess weight on them by looking at them. To put it simply, they look like they are at the healthy weight range. And if your set point is at the healthy weight range, yes, I believe in the BMI. So that means that your weight compared to your height leaves you at between 18.5 and 25 on the BMI. And that means that if I look at these creators, the past two, they look like their weight will fall somewhere between there. And of course, then in that case, it's easy for you to say, okay, yeah, I'm okay with my set point weight, because when you're there, I'm not saying that means that you're healthy, but when you're there, you're more comfortable with your weight. It's much easier for you to move. It's much easier for you to go to the hospital because the doctors will not be telling you that you need to lose weight. There are many things that you're able to do. Actually, even when it comes to things like flying, you're able to book one seat. And if you're flying Southwest, you don't have to worry that you'll be told to pay for another seat, as has been happening to bigger people. So for them, it's easy to say, yes, just accept your set point weight, because in their case, their set point probably falls in that healthy BMI range. But what happens to someone who's 400 pounds? What if when you're doing what you're supposed to do to take care of yourself, your weight is at 400 pounds? Is that okay? Should you just accept accept it. She said wait for it to settle, and that might mean that you'll gain weight. If you're 400 pounds and you wait for your weight to settle and it settles at 450 pounds, is that okay? Because this is a general rule that they're giving to people. Just let your weight settle where it will, because your biology will help you figure out where you're supposed to be. But where it falls will be very different for different people. I mean, it's all about habits. The habits that you engage in and you think that you're trying to take care of yourself will be very different from one person to the other. And so what happens, people who engage in those habits and end up gaining weight because, like she said, it's okay. But what if your weight gain is actually bad for your health? But that's not something that they really discuss. So let's talk about, can we actually fight nature? Now, why is it that some people find that their weight settles at a certain weight while others find that it settles at another weight? The truth is that to some extent, your body does have internal mechanisms that it relies on to maintain stability. However, when it comes to weight, you're not wired to remain at the same weight range for the rest of your life. Instead, what you weigh comes down to several factors. First, your genetics, which is something that people like to talk about. They act like genetics set your weight in stone and you can never change it, which is not the case, because there are other factors to consider. These include hormones, your lifestyle, and your environment. So while it is true that your body might resist change when you embark on things such as fad diets, it will respond to consistency in healthy behaviors, or unhealthy behaviors too, because if you're consistently eating takeout and leading a sedentary life and eating at a surplus, you will gain weight. Those are your behaviors. But let's say you engage in healthy behaviors. For example, if you start weight training, you will build muscle, which will boost your metabolism, and that will actually help you eat more while burning more. In the same way, if you start eating more whole foods, you will find that you're able to stabilize your hunger and fullness hormones. And as we said, hormones also affect your weight, because yes, we're talking about your fullness and your hunger hormones, as opposed to someone who starts eating ultra processed foods. If you're relying on your hunger and fullness hormones to tell you when you've had enough Oreos or enough McDonald's meals, you will be having a very hard time, because these foods are designed to be very highly palatable and they're so deficient in certain nutrients and deficient in fiber that it's going to be very hard for you to feel full on them. So yes, we might point to genetics as one factor that we need to consider when it comes to our weight, but we cannot talk about genetics without talking about the control that we also have when it comes to our lifestyle, when it comes to our hormones, and when it comes to the environment in which we live. And that said, your physiology is very capable of adapting to the conditions in which you live. And that brings us to another creator. And this one tries to convince us that the set point theory is so strong that we cannot do anything about it. And the way she describes it is actually quite interesting. Listen to this.
Question is referring to set point weight, so let's find out what that is and where we can find it. I want you to imagine for me a giant beach ball floating on a pool of water, and imagine how that just glides there effortlessly. This represents what we call your set point weight. Through dieting and restriction, imagine we're pushing the beach ball underwater. That requires a lot of time, effort, and strain on your arms, and over a couple of days or weeks, you get tired, and so what do? Release the beach ball, and it goes poof back into the air, and that represents this yo-yo fluctuation. So you panic, you grab your beach ball, and you shove it back underwater, and that can be really chaotic and very stressful for your body. So through healing your relationship with food, we're able to find this place where your beach ball effortlessly sits, and we call this your set point weight. So to answer your question, focus on how you want to feel and behaviors that improve your health.
Why is the assumption that for you to push that beach ball into the water you're engaging in, and the way she says restriction makes it sound like a bad thing? A calorie deficit is not a bad thing. If you're in a calorie deficit and you have an unhealthy amount of weight on you, and I'm talking about an excess amount of weight, that means that you have enough energy stored in your body to help you fuel your daily activities. Of course, there are differences when it comes to calorie deficits. If you engage in a very aggressive cut, that will probably backfire. But if you're in a slight to moderate calorie deficit, you're still giving your body enough fuel and you're allowing it to use the stored up energy in your body. That will not cause you to be straining so much. I can imagine the strain that it will take to keep a beach ball down in the ocean or any body of water. Of course, that will be strenuous. But a slight to moderate calorie deficit is not like that. And that means that many people are able to go on these cuts without straining that much. But the way she describes it makes it look like as long as you're trying to lose weight, you'll be struggling. And she does not even mention the ways that you're trying to lose weight. She tells you, just stay where you are, doing what you're doing, and just let your body do its thing. And that's not a good mindset. No matter what message that movements online may be spreading, research conducted over the past few decades has proven that your weight is not permanent. In fact, the real trap is not in your biology. The real trap is in your mindset. If you believe that weight loss is impossible, if you believe that your body is more comfortable at a certain weight, then that will act as the barrier to your weight loss. However, they do have a point when it comes to calorie deficits. Like I have said, if you're too aggressive in your approach, if you're using an unsustainable approach like, cabbage soup diets, or you're cutting your calories to 900 calories a day, and you're a person who needs like 2500 calories a day, that will be very unsustainable, and that will make it hard for you to remain on that weight loss journey and also keep the weight off after you are done cutting. So to ensure that your body will not resist you as much as that beach ball when you're trying to lose weight, you need to embark on gradual changes as opposed to extremes. And that's because when you approach weight loss gradually and consistently and very patiently, you give your body time to adapt to this new home base, if that's what we can call it, rather than triggering its alarm system where it will try to maintain stability and it it will increase your hunger hormones and reduce your fullness levels, and you'll be struggling so much to stay in that deficit. You will still lose weight. Thermodynamics will still be at play, but it will be harder for you to remain in that deficit. But that said, weight loss is able to last through the years as long as the habits do too. And that's why the most important thing on a weight loss journey is to develop healthy and sustainable habits that you can hold on to for years and years and years. In my Better in 90 program, we do not believe that you're stuck when it comes to weight loss. Regardless of how often you have yo-yo dieted, regardless of how often you have lost weight and regained it, you're not stuck. Your body is an incredibly dynamic system. And that means that if you want to move the needle, you can do so. You just need to work with your body instead of working against it. And if you're tired of your set point, that range, that miracle range where you're supposed to be, here are 3 ways in which you can start resetting it today. First, you need to prioritize eating enough protein and also building some muscle. Especially if you're a woman, above the age of 30, it's very important for you to start building muscle. And that's because muscle is metabolically active tissue. So by building lean mass, you're essentially upgrading that internal thermostat that they kept talking about. And by boosting your metabolism, you make it much easier for your body to maintain a healthy weight. Secondly, focus on sustainable cuts. There are very many diets out there that tell you to eat 1200 calories, 1000 calories, even 500 calories. This is not sustainable. When you're in an extreme deficit, you trigger a survival mechanism in your body. Like I said, your hunger hormones will increase so much, and it's very easy for you to feel like you're craving food. And not only that, your fullness levels just plummet and you start feeling hungry all the time. Hungry, HA, you're hungry and you're hungry. It will be very hard for you to keep that going. What happens when you get to your weight loss goal? Will you keep on eating that way? It will be very hard to make that a sustainable lifestyle. And that means you will keep on going up and going down, which will make it feel like you actually have a set point. Instead of doing that, focus on a slight to moderate calorie deficit where you're only cutting maybe let's say 10 to 20% of your daily calories, and then doing that over a long period of time instead of trying to lose all the weight that you have gained in like a week or a month. Give your body time to adapt. Finally, you need to own your autonomy. The idea that 95% of diets fail takes away your autonomy. It takes away responsibility from you because you're told that this is not your fault. You couldn't have done anything about it. It's your genetics. It's nothing to do with you. But when you do that, you take away responsibility from yourself. You make yourself subject to factors that are outside your control. Well, in reality, they actually are in your control. You have the power to influence your hormones. You have the power to influence your environment. You have the power to influence your habits. And your daily choices will have an impact not only on your weight loss goal, but also on your health. So it's up to you to decide whether you're going to take control of your health journey or whether you're going to let it be determined by factors that are supposedly out of your control. And if you look at those creators, the last 3 creators that I have covered, these dietitians, do they really look like they have given up autonomy when it comes to their bodies? Do they really look like they don't really care about how their bodies look? Do they really look like the people who go a day without having enough fiber or hitting their protein goals? They look like people who really take care of their health. They look like people who make sure that they're building lean muscle and eating right and getting enough sleep and managing their stress levels and making sure, as much as they'll say that they don't really believe in the BMI, they make sure that they are at a healthy weight. They have autonomy over their lives, but they're telling other people not to do the same thing. Instead of listening to people like this, make sure that you take control of your life instead of giving over those reins to someone else or other factors. As you can tell, I was very excited about making today's video because it's personal to me, because there was a time that I actually believed in the set point theory, and I did a video on this where I talked about how health at every size actually affected my health, how I ended up sick after listening to creators such as this because I thought that I had no control over my weight. I thought that it didn't matter what I ate as long as I listened to my body and I listened to my hunger cues. I honored my hunger and fullness cues. And as much as intuitive eating is a good thing, it's not something that everyone can do naturally. Many of us have to teach ourselves how to do this by making healthy habits our lifestyle. Over time, then it becomes easier for you to decide that, okay, yeah, I really do feel like eating these healthy foods intuitively. But that's something that you have to teach yourself. If you're not used to eating intuitively, what feels intuitive to you might be a pack of Oreos and soda for dinner. And you wake up in the morning and you have maybe very high sugary cereal and like maybe a latte that's full of caramel syrup, or just things that are not really good for you. You can end up with a very unhealthy lifestyle if you're just doing it intuitively when you don't have a strong and healthy foundation. And if you're interested in learning more about how I broke free from the HAES movement and came over to this side where I can look at those dietitians and say they're not practicing what they're preaching, I have that video linked in the description. But that said, the set point theory is not a sentence when it comes to your weight loss. It's not set in stone. And weight loss is not just about your genes. Yes, people might say that people in your family happen to be bigger, but if you look at it, you probably have the same habits. You're probably all like doing the same things, whatever those are that are resulting in your weight being like that. Because even if you look at my 600 100-pound life. If you look at the cast characters, members who are there and they are bigger and they like cooking, you see that the people around them are also eating part of that food and they're also a bit bigger. And that's because we share habits with the people around us. And that's why people in one family might seem like they are naturally thinner, while others look like they are naturally bigger. But it's because our habits tend to be shared. And that means that your genetics, yes, might play a small part in whether you're gaining weight fast or losing weight fast. But at the end of the day, it still comes back down to your habits. And so don't let this message of hopelessness and helplessness keep you from the weight loss goals that you deserve. Just keep showing up, remain patient, follow something that is sustainable and which does not stress your body or even you so much that it becomes harder to maintain over time. And always remember that your body is capable of incredible change if given the time and the tools to do so. So has the set point theory ever made you feel like you need to give up on your weight loss goals? Have you ever listened to someone online and thought that there's nothing that you can do when it comes to your weight? I have been there and I know how heavy it feels. I know how freeing it feels to learn that you can wake up in the middle of the night and have cereal. I understand that part, but I also know how heavy it feels to feel like you have no power over your own body. So let's chat about it in the comments. If you've ever been there, if you've ever been curious about what it's like to be there, let me know. And give this video a thumbs up if you're ready to take the wheel when it comes to your own life and drive that vehicle in the direction that you want. And also hit subscribe so that you don't miss out on next week's myth. I will see you in the next one.